Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, Text 20. And this verse says, Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisance, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Well, okay, that's what a genuine devotee must do. Understand what the spiritual master wants him to do and to follow the order and carry it out with great respect. Purport: Sri Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma. Therefore, according to social etiquette, his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrata therefore immediately said, "Yes, sir, I shall carry out your order." Priyavrata is described as a Mahabhagavata, a great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of the spiritual master, or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in a parampara system, as described in Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Evam parampara praptam. One has to receive the instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Well, that means he's very, very dedicated and to follow the instructions of the Vaishnava acharyas and not be puffed up and not be insubordinate. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. So that means he has no false ego. Text 21. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrata and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrata to take the responsibility of ruling the world. Oh, that's a big responsibility, ruling the whole world. Priyavrata and Narada were very satisfied, although Brahma had forced Priyavrata to accept the management of worldly affairs, thus breaking his vow to remain brahmachari and completely engage in devotional service. Narada and Priyavata did not look upon Brahma with resentment. Narada was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavata a disciple. Both Priyavata and Narada were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered their respect. You see, now this is the correct way that uh, um, Vaishnavas act with each other. Here you have two exalted uh, brahmanas, but they have uh, different opinions about the service of Priyavata, who's a disciple. But yet they don't get into a big argument. One uh, uh, surrenders to the others, well, not surrenders, but one accepts the opinion of another, knowing well that in the future everything will be settled nicely, rather than getting into a big fight now. Lord Brahma then returned to his celestial abode known as Satyaloka, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words. So therefore, the main statement here is Narada was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavata a disciple. Both Priyavata and Narada were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. That's a very important statement. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect because Lord Brahma had a different opinion uh, um, than who was that?
Narada.
Oh,
Narada Muni, right?
yeah, Narada Muni. Yeah. So they didn't get into a fight. That means that they both have complete control of their senses and their mind. It is stated in this verse that Lord Brahma returned to his residence, which is as important as his own personality. Lord Brahma is the creator of this universe and the most exalted personality within it. His lifetime is described in Bhagavad Gita 8:17. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Vidu. The total duration of the four yugas is 4,300,000 years. And when that is multiplied 1,000 times, it equals 12 hours in the life of Brahma. Wow. Therefore, we cannot factually comprehend even 12 hours of Brahma's life, to say nothing of the 100 years that constitute his entire life. How can we understand his abode? The Vedic literatures describe that in Satya Yoga Loka, there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. In other words, since Satyaloka is situated next to Brahmaloka, or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha Loka. Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma's abode is practically indescribable from our present status. Therefore, it has been described as avari manasa gochara, or beyond the description of our words and the imagination of our minds. Oh, that's important. The Vedic literatures thus describe the abode of Lord Brahma, Yadvai Parardyam Tat Upar Amestriam Na Yacha Sukho Na Jara Na Mrityur Nartir Na Kodvega in Satyuga, which is situated many millions and billions of years away. There is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or influence of enemies. Wow, we want to go there. The abode of Lord Brahma. And just imagine that the pure devotee goes even farther than the abode of Lord Brahma. Text 22. Swayambhuvaman, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. Wow, that's true. He became free because he had a very good son. Swayambhu purport, Swayambhuva Manu was practically hopeless because such a great personality as Narada was instructing his son, Priyavata, not to accept household life. Now he was very that Lord Brahma had interfered by inducing his son to accept the responsibility for ruling the government of the universe. Well, see, that's what happens when one has control of the senses and the mind. He always will accept the opinion of the superior and not get into a big fight. So, uh, um, although you have two authorities, but uh, when they're bona fide authorities, they don't get into an argument. They make an adjustment so that one will prevail at the present, knowing very well that later on in the future, his opinion will be followed. But in the meantime, a superior devotee's opinion is respected first. From Bhagavad Gita, we get information that Vaivasvatamanu was the son of the sun god, and that his son, Maharaja Ikshvaku, ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhuva Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe. And he entrusted to his son, Maharaj Priyavrata, the responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planetary systems. Dara Mandala means planet. This Earth, for instance, is called Dara Mandala, Akila. I'm sorry, Dara Mandala. Next statement. Akila, however, it means all or universal. It is therefore difficult to understand where Maharaj Priyavrata was situated. But from this literature, his position certainly appears greater than that of Vaivasvata Manu. Interesting. For he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Another significant statement is that Swayambhuva Manu took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary systems of the universe. In other words, he was relieved of his tremendous responsibilities, and someone else was going to take care of it. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge of the government, and they engage their men in canvassing from door to door to get votes to win the post of president or similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Yeah. Similarly, his father, Swayambhuva Manu, felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Yeah, he didn't want to. Uh, he didn't want to die with his boots on, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to give everything now to his son. Thus, it is evident that the kings and executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings, who were known as Rajarsis, ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for welfare of the citizens. The history of Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu describes how exemplary responsible monarchs performed the duties of government with disinterest, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. Very important statement. Material affairs have herein been compared to an ocean of poison. Wow. They have been described in a similar way by Srila Narottam Dasa Thakura in one of his songs. Samsara Vishanale Diva Nisihiya Jwale Judaite na Kainu Upaya. My heart is always burning in the fire of material existence, and I have made no provisions for getting out of it. Wow. This is the dilemma of people who are very attached to mundane life and they cannot give it up, but yet they'll be forced to by the laws of material nature. So they're really not only frightened, but very frustrated that they cannot continue birth after birth being the boss. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtana Ratina Janmila Kinetaya. The only remedy is Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavana. How unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this. Manu wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore, when his son Priyavrata took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. That is the system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. The word Surarsi, Surarsi Vara Anumatena is also significant. Manu entrusted the government to his son with the permission of the great saint Narada. This is particularly mentioned because although Narada wanted Priyavrata to become free from all material affairs, when Priyavrata took charge of the universe by the request of Lord Brahma and Manu, Narada was also very pleased. Yeah, they didn't get into an argument. They and Lord Brahma was given all the respect due to him, and Narada was not going to argue about anything and accept the situation. Text 23. Following the order of the Supreme Personality Godhead, Maharaj Priyavata fully engaged in worldly affairs, yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay, well, that's the real position of a person who is on the path to go back to Godhead. He takes care of the worldly affairs, but he's always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavata Maharaj was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Wonderful. Purport. The word mana vardhano mahatam, just to show honor to superiors, are very significant. Although Maharaj Priyavata was already a liberated person and had no attraction for material things, he engaged himself fully in the governmental affairs just to show respect to Lord Brahma. Arjuna had also acted in the same way. Arjuna had no desire to participate in political affairs or fighting at Kurukshetra, but when ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord Krishna, he executed those duties very nicely. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord is certainly above the contamination of the material world. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam apisarvyasam mad gantanam taratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukatamo mata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me meaning Krishna, with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Maharaj Priyavata, therefore, was a liberated person and was among the highest of yogis. Yet superficially, he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahma. Showing respect to his superior in this way was another of his extraordinary qualifications, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28. Narayana Paramasarve Na Kutaschana Bibhyati Swarga Pavaga Narakeshu Api Tuyarta Darshana. A devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of God. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does a Mahabhagavata, who has nothing to do with the material world, come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. Wonderful statement. Wonderful statement. So a devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does this principle does a Mahabhagavata who has nothing to do with the material world come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. Text 24. Thereafter, Maharaj Priyavrata married Vahishmati, the daughter of the Prajapati named Vishvakarma, all great devotees. In her, he begot 10 sons equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter, the youngest of all, named Urjavati. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Priyavrata not only carried out the order of Lord Brahma by accepting the duties of government, but also married Vahishmati, the daughter of Vishwakarma, one of the Prajapatis. Since Maharaj Priyavrata was fully trained in transcendental knowledge, he could have returned home and conducted the business of government as a brahmachari. Instead, however, when he returned to household life, he accepted a wife also. The principle is that when one becomes a grihasta, he must live perfectly in that order, which means he must live peacefully with a wife and children. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first wife died, his mother requested him to marry for a second time. He was 20 years old and was going to take sannyasa at the age of 24. Yet, by the request of his mother, he married. As long as I am a household life, as long as I am in household life, he told his mother, I must have a wife, for household life does not mean staying in a house. Real household life means living in a house with a wife. Interesting. Good point. 3 words in this verse are very significant. Uha va. These words are used to express wonder. Priyavrata Maharaj had taken a vow of renunciation, but accepting a wife and begetting children have nothing to do with the path of renunciation. These are activities on a path of enjoyment. It was a source of great wonder, therefore, that Priyavrata Maharaj, who had followed the path of renunciation, had now accepted the path of enjoyment. That only means that a genuine devotee can follow any path of dutiful service. So when there's necessity for a brahmachari to take higher, let's say, instructions from his guru or gurus, he does not refuse to do it. Sometimes, yes, there are uh, exceptional conditions where the devotee may refuse to do service, but that is not, uh, let's say, uh, encountered all the time. There are great devotees that refuse to get involved in mundane activities. And there are other great devotees who accept the responsibility of mundane activities as a dutiful, let's say, acceptance to help other exalted devotees uh, retire. So this is all based on service and not based on wanting to be a boss and and engaging in sense gratification. Sometimes we are criticized because although I am a sannyasi, I have taken part in the marriage ceremonies of my disciples. It must be explained, however, that since we have started a Krishna conscious society and since a human society must have ideal marriages, very important statement, to correctly establish an ideal society, we must take part in marrying some of our members, although we have taken to the path of renunciation. This may be astonishing to persons who are not very interested in establishing Daiva Varnashrama. In other words, the spiritual practice of Varnashrama, the transcendental system of four social orders and four spiritual orders. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, however, wanted to reestablish Daiva Varnashrama. In Daiva Varnashrama, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma. Yeah, so just because someone is born into a Brahmana family, that doesn't mean that that child or that person automatically becomes a Brahmana. It must acquire the real qualities of a Brahmana. And if he doesn't, he can't claim, oh, well, I was born in a Brahmana family, therefore I'm a Brahmana. No, he has to demonstrate that he has genuine qualities of a Brahmana. So therefore it says, uh, there's no question of birthright position. One has to be meritorious. Everything is meritorious. In other words, one has to have the qualities of a genuine Brahmana. If he's born in a Brahmana family, but manifests the qualities of a Sudra, then he's not a Brahmana. He can't say, well, I was born in a Brahmana family, that means I'm a Brahmana. No, he has to show that he is actually qualified as a Brahmana. Therefore, it says here, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, however, wanted to reestablish Daiva Varnashrama. In Daiva Varnashrama, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright. Major statement. Because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma. In other words, the quality and the ability to execute the responsibilities of spiritual life have to be taken into consideration. One's qualities and work. It is this Daiva Varnasrama that should be established all over this world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but it is one of the functions of a Krishna conscious society. So everything is not based on what you would call what is it? Just because one is born into a Brahmana family, that doesn't mean someone is a Brahmana. One has to present the qualities of a Brahmana in order to have the position of a Brahmana. So one Brahmana may have a child, but if the child grows up and doesn't have the qualities of a Brahmana, he's not accepted as a Brahmana. On the other hand, one would be born in a very poor family or a non-family of brahmanas, but has the quality of a brahmana, then he's accepted as a genuine brahmana. So in the Krishna consciousness, everything is based on merits, not on, uh, let's say, uh, what is it called? Being accepted due to birth and not according to merit. The 10 sons of Maharaj Priyavrata were named Agnitra, Idma, Jiva, Yajabahu, Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Grita Prista, Savana, Medha Titi, Vittihotra, and Kavi. These are the names of Agni. These are also names of Agni, the fire god. Text 26. Three among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus trained in brahmacharya life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection, known as Paramahamsa Ashrama. Purport. The Urdhva Retasa in this verse is very significant. Urdhva Reta refers to one who can control sex life and who, instead of wasting semen by discharging it, can use this most important substance accumulated in the body to enrich the brain. Very important statement. One should not waste semen. And if one is trained in not wasting semen, then the semen can rise up to his brain and make the brain very fertile and engage in pure activities of devotional service. Therefore, not being corrupted by sense gratification and wasting semen. One who can completely control sex life is able to work wonderfully with his brain, especially in remembering. Thus, students who simply hear Vedic instructions once from their teacher could remember them verbatim without needing to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times. Wow, amazing. Another significant word is arba bhavat, which means from very childhood. Another meaning is from being very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramahansa life is dedicated for the benefit of others, just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son. Great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. In this connection, there is a verse concerning the six Goswamis. Tyakvatrunam asesha mandala pati shrenim sadatuchavat bhutvadina ganesha klo karunaya kopina katas shito. Because of their compassion for poor fallen souls, the six Goswamis gave up their exalted positions as ministers and took vows as mendicants. That's because they had compassion for the fallen souls, thus minimizing their bodily wants as far as possible. They each accepted only loincloth and a begging bowl. Thus, they remained in Vrindavana to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by compiling and publishing various Vaishnava literatures. Well, they took the instructions of Lord Chaitanya in order to establish on a very, very solid status, the Vaishnava literatures, so that there would not be any, let's say, misunderstanding of what is the proper behavior of devotees. Text 27. Thus, situated in a renounced order from the beginning of their lives, all three of them completely controlled the activities of their senses and thus became great saints. Well, yeah, you cannot be a saint if you have no control of your senses. In other words, you're always engaged in devotional service. That means that you have control of your senses. They concentrated their minds always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities, and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudeva. Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. Yeah, we should be afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of his lotus feet, these three sons of Maharaj Priyavata became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess, meaning the strength of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and realize that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and him. Yeah, they have the same culture, complete surrender to the Lord, and full engagement in devotional service without any sense gratification. Rather, using the senses to please Lord Krishna. So they're not like Mayavadis. Mayavadis want to renounce the senses. The devotees don't renounce the senses, but they engage the senses in the service of the Lord. That's the difference between the Mayavadis and the devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Paramahansa stage is the topmost position in renounced life. In sannyasa, the renounced order, there are four stages: Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Rajakacharya, and Paramahansa. According to the Vedic system, when one accepts the renounced order, he stays outside his village in a cottage, and his necessities, especially his food, are supplied from home. This is called Kutichaka stage, first stage of renunciation. When a sannyasi advances further, he no longer accepts anything from home. Instead, he collects his necessities, especially his food, from many places. In other words, he has no home and hearth. He is completely dependent on Krishna. This system is called Madhukari, which literally means the profession of the bumblebees. What does a bumblebee do? He takes a little bit here and a little bit there. He doesn't try to get everything in one place. He is not. He's satisfied to take a little bit in different places. That means he is not attached to anything. As bumblebees collect honey from many flowers, a little from each, so a sannyasi should beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. Yeah, he shouldn't be attached. He should collect a little bit from every house. This is called Bahudak stage. When a sannyasi is still more experienced, he travels all over the world to preach the glories of Lord Vasudeva. He is then known as Parivrajacacharya. The sannyasi reaches the Paramahansa stage when he finishes his preaching work. and sits down in one place, strictly for the sake of advancing the spiritual life. That is, performing great tapasya, very severe tapasya. An actual paramahansa is one who completely controls his senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. Therefore, all three of these sons of Priyavata, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, were situated in the Paramahansa stage from the very beginning. Their senses could not disturb them, for their senses were completely engaged in serving the Lord. Therefore, the three brothers are described in this verse as Upasama Stila. Upasama means completely subdued. Because they completely subdued their senses, they are understood to have been great sages and saints. After subduing their senses, the three brothers concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. The lotus feet of Vasudeva are everything. Lord Vasudeva is the reservoir of all living entities. When this cosmic manifestation is dissolved, all living entities enter the supreme body of the Lord, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, who merges within the body of Mahavishnu. Both of these Vishnu tattvas are Vasudeva tattvas, and therefore the great sages, Kavi, Mahavirya, and Savana, concentrated always upon the lotus feet of the Lord, Vasudeva Krishna. In this way, they could understand that the supersoul within the heart is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they could recognize their identity with Him. The complete description of this realization is that simply by discharging unalloyed form of devotional service, one can retire his self completely. I'm sorry, one can realize himself completely. The Parama Bhakti Yoga mentioned in this verse means that a living entity, by dint of unalloyed devotional service, has no other interest than the service of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. By Parama Bhakti Yoga, meaning the highest form of devotional service, by elevating oneself to the highest platform of loving service, one can automatically be relieved from the bodily concept of life and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Pramanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadaiva Hridayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. An advanced devotee who is known as Sat or Saint can always see within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, Krishna. Shyam Sundara expands himself by his plenary portion, and thus a devotee can always see him within his heart. Text 28. In his other wife, Maharaj Priyavata begot three sons named Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. All of them later took charge of Manvantara millenniums. Well, that means they're all exalted devotees. Purport. In every day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantaras. The duration of one Manvantara The lifespan of one Manu is 71 yugas, and each yuga is 4,320,000 years. Wow. Almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantaras, I'm sorry, almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantaras came from the family of Maharaj Priyavrata. Oh, that's a big family. It's a very exalted family. Three of them are particularly mentioned herein, namely Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. After Kavi, Mahavirya, and Savana were completely trained in the Paramahansa stage of life. Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. Okay, what's an arbuda? Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his two powerful arms, all opponents of the opponents of the regulative principles of religious life would flee from his presence in fear. In fear of the unparalleled prowess or power he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife, Parhismati, and with the increase of days, their exchange of nuptial love or married love also increased. By her feminine behavior, as she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about, Queen Parhismati increased his energy. Yeah, um, that's normal when you're married to a beautiful wife who is very submissive. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his wife. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually, he was a great soul. In this verse, purport, in this verse, the word Dharma Pratipaksha, opponents of religious principles, refers not to a particular faith, but to Varnashram Dharma, the division of society socially and spiritually into four Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and four ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. To maintain proper social order and help the citizens gradually progress toward the goal of life, namely spiritual understanding, the principles of Varnashram Dharma must be accepted. From this verse, Maharaj Priyavrata appears to have been so strict in maintaining this institution of Varnashram Dharma that anyone neglecting it would immediately flee from his presence as soon as the king warned him by fighting or administrating light punishment. Yeah, not excessive punishment, light punishment. You don't want to excessively punish people because then they will not be able to function normally. They'll be afraid all the time. Indeed, Maharaj Priyavrata would not have to fight, for simply because of his strong determination, they dared not disobey the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharma. Well, he's a real leader. Not only he has daunting strength, but he does not use it wantonly, simply for aggrandizing, collecting more and more money and power. But yet, people respect him because of his great powers. So they don't want to get into a fight with him. It is said that unless human society is regulated by Varnashram Dharma, it is no better than a bestial society of cats and dogs. Maharaj Priyavrata therefore strictly maintained Varnashram Dharma by his extraordinary, unparalleled prowess, prowess meaning power. To maintain such a life of strict vigilance, one needs encouragement from his wife. That shows how behind every great man is a great woman, as they say, who invigorates the husband to act properly as a leader of society. In the Varnashram Dharma system, certain classes, such as the Brahmanas, sannyasis, do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and Grihastas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. Indeed, a Grihasta or Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihasta must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government. The association of a good wife is necessary in the life of karma and political affairs. To execute his duties properly, therefore, Maharaja Priyavrata took advantage of his good wife, Barhismati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Queen Barhismati always kept Maharaj Priyavrata very encouraged, and thus he executed his governmental duty very properly. In this verse, Eva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrata acted exactly like a hen-pecked husband. Hen-pecked husband is one who completely is surrendered to his wife and does whatever she tells him to do. In this verse, Eva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrata acted exactly like a hen-pecked husband, meaning a husband who always follows whatever his wife says, and thereby seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul. Although he seemingly behaved like an acquiescent karmi husband. Acquiescent means surrendered. Karmi husband. Maharaj Priyavrata thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. I don't know what arbuda is. One arbuda, okay, here it is. One arbuda consists of 100, trillion years? It is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros. So that's thousands and that's millions.
1 billion.
Yeah. So it consists of 1 billion years. And Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas. Wow. That's unimaginable time. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot. The sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light. And when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavatu disliked this situation. See how powerful it is. He can change the whole nature of spiritual, of natural life. Therefore, decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could even change the orbit of the sun god. That's real power. Purport. There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the night day and the day night. He can make the night day and the day night. Wow. That saying is current because the prowess of Priyavrata. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwara, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita 1878, it is said, wherever there is the master of all mystic powers, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all other opulences are present. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the master of mystic power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things unimaginable even to the most powerful scientists. From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is rotating in prescribed orbit. This fact is corroborated by the Brahma Samhita 552. Yasya Naya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakra. The sun is rotating in its fixed orbit in accordance with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to the Jyotir Veda, the science of astronomy in the Vedic literature, the sun moves for 6 months on the northern side of the Sumeru hill and for 6 months on the southern side. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter in the south, and vice versa. Modern materialistic scientists sometimes present themselves as knowing all the ingredients of the sun, yet they are unable to offer a second sun like Maharaj Priyavrata's. Although Maharaj Priyavrata devised a very powerful chariot as brilliant as the sun, he had no desire to compete with the sun god. For a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. Oh, very good statement. His purpose was to give abundant benefits in material existence. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura remarks that in the months of April and May, the rays of Maharaj Priyavrata's brilliant sun were as pleasing as the rays of the moon. And in October and November, both morning and evening, that sun provided more warmth than the sunshine. In short, Maharaj Priyavrata was extremely powerful, and his actions extended his power in all directions. Wow. Text 31. When Priyavata drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhu Mandala into 7 islands. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes the planets in outer space are called islands. We have experience of various types of islands in the ocean. Similarly, the various planets, divided into 14 lokas, are islands in the ocean of space. As Priyavata drove his chariot behind the sun, he created 7 different types of oceans and planetary systems, which altogether are known as Bhu Mandala or Bhu Loka. In the Gayatri Mantra, we chant Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. Above the Bhuloka planetary system is Bhuvar Loka, and above that is Svarga Loka, the heavenly planetary system. All these planetary systems are controlled by Savita, the sun god. By chanting the Gayatri Mantra, just after rising early in the morning, one worships the sun god. Okay, Gayatri Mantra is very important. I think we'll stop right there. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments of what we read today?
I think the whole story of Priyavrata is a very good example of what Prabhupada wants us to do instead of sitting in a bhajananandi, sitting somewhere and meditating. Take up the service of the Lord in terms of whether preaching or active service. Is that how we can see Maharaj? Because in the end, Priyavrata does all the household activities, kingly activities, but never gets entangled and then again goes back.
Very good statement. Exactly right. To maintain such a life of strict vigilance, one needs encouragement from his wife. In the Varnashrama Dharma system, certain classes, such as the Brahmanas and Sannyasis, do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and Grihastas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. Indeed, a Grihasta or Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihasta must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government. The association of a good wife is necessary in a life of karma and political affairs. Yeah. The association of a good wife is necessary in a life of karma and political affairs. To execute his duties properly, therefore, Maharaj Priyavrata took advantage of his good wife, Bharhismati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Okay, Matajis, take these statements very seriously to be able to inspire your husband to be a good devotee. In this verse, okay, Priyavata acted exactly like a hand-picked husband, meaning he always was following his wife's instructions. That's a henpecked husband. So a hen meaning a bird,
Chicken.
chicken, will use its strong, what is it,
Beak.
beak, and uses that to eat and also to fight with. Yeah. So Maharaj Priyavata acted exactly like a hand-picked husband. In other words, his wife was always telling him what to do, and therefore seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul, although he seemingly behaved like an acquiescent, meaning completely surrendered, karmi husband. Maharaj Priyavata thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. One arbuda consists of 100 Buddhas, a trillion years. And Maharaj Priyavata ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas. Wow. He must have had really powerful wives. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions or comments about what we have read today?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This is Nitya Hari Priyadas.
Haribol Prabhu.
Maharaj, I was confused when we read one statement in the Satyaloka there is no death, and also Satyaloka is a place of abode of Brahma. But the Bhagavad Gita says Abrahma Bhuvana Punaravritu Arjuna. Until the planet of Brahma, there is a death. And I was bewildered, confused when I contrasted these, what we read today, what is in Bhagavad Gita. This is covered in the text 21 purport, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, second. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavata and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. So, where is the statement that you're looking for? That you just,
It's a last paragraph of the purport and that verse.
okay. In Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or the influence of enemies. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Well, uh, you see, the devotee is not concerned about longevity of life. A devotee is only concerned about performing devotional service. And whether his life is very long or very short is not a concern because he knows that his soul is eternal. But if he can do good things for a very long time, then he'll accept that. Or if he can do good things for just a short period of time and then go back to Godhead, he'll also accept that. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that life in the material world is not the unum, the best way to live. Life in the material world is always dangerous and always rife or full of challenges. However, a devotee will accept life in the material world in order to help others make spiritual advancement and go back to Godhead. So going back to Godhead is the real purpose of life.
Yeah, I mean, I think One is Krishna's highest view, which is the absolute truth, which is Bhagavad Gita says, Abrahma Gunalaka. But then this one, Prabhupada is giving this from the perspective of Brahma's lifetime, which is itself is vast for other people in that Brahma's purview, Satyaloka view. It's as good as there is no death because it's like 311 trillion years. So it's not contradictory per se, but it's the purview under which the Prabhupada explains that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
No, it says in Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or the influence of enemies. That is the abode of Lord Brahman. But higher than the abode of Lord Brahma is the spiritual world. So even in the life of Lord Brahma, there is death.
Yeah, it's still there, but it's vastly. Imagine like we live in 100 years versus 311 trillion years. It feels like in relatively it's
But it goes by in the same way as living 100 years.
for that planet people.
Yeah. So we should just focus on devotional service, whether it's a short lifetime or an unimaginably long lifetime, because that is the safest position. Always engaged in the devotional service to the Lord, even in the material world or the spiritual world. So either way, we should always be engaged in devotional service.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
We can engage in devotional service from any position of life. That is the mercy of the Lord. Thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,